Well, hello Internet, and welcome to part 8 of my After Effects tutorial series. In this part, I'm going to cover animations. I'm going to show you how to work with cameras. I'm going to show you how to take images that are flat and make them look 3D. I'm also going to show you how to take Adobe Illustrator files and animate them, and a whole lot more, and I have a lot to do, so let's get into it. Alright, so I'm going to show you how to make every single animation you saw in the intro. If you want to use exactly what I used in the description underneath the video, we have a link to this image, and this is the website I'm getting free vector art from. And Ubuntu is a Google font. All this stuff's free, of course, that I am going to use in the video. So you can go and get those things if you'd like, or just use whatever you'd like. Alright, and here are all the vector art, and you're going to see here, whenever you download the vector art, it is going to come in kind of a mess. What we need to do is put everything in the same layer, and how you're going to do that is you're just going to simply go and select one of these items, come over here, and you are going to come down to Collect in New Layer. There it is, and then you're going to drag it out and put it in its own layer. And then you can see what this is, so let's just click. What's that? Okay, so that's a cloud. And the way I organized everything, I gave everything a name of Cloud 1, Cloud 2, Cloud 3, Cloud 4, Cloud 5, and so forth, Tree 1, Tree 2, so that I can see where everything's lined up. So in this situation, this is going to be Cloud 2, and I'm going to name it Cloud 2, just as I did right there. And if I do that for every single one of these items, putting them on their own separate layer, I end up getting something that looks like this. And all that I did was I went and created the background so that it is 1080 by 1920, so that it fits in my composition. And you can see everything is labeled properly and put in the proper order. All right, so that is how we're going to get all of our art working. Here is all of my planet art as well. And here is the After Effects logo. I'm going to use all these things in this video. Alright, so now I'm in After Effects, and I am going to come in here and import. And everything works exactly the same on Windows as well as Mac, except when I say Command, if you're on Windows, use Control. If I say Option, use Alt. So we're going to import these completely different types of files. So I'm going to go File, and I'm going to go get the right folder. Alright, so I want Old City Center, and I want it as footage, and I do not want to create a composition, and that is fine. So just go and import that. You'll see it shows up over here. And then we're going to go import some more files. So what else do we have here? Well, I have my planets, and I have my snow art. Those are going to be very special things that are going to be created in the same way. You're going to come in and say you want a composition, you want to retain layer sizes. Do not create a composition, multiple sequences, all this stuff's fine. Click on Open, and you'll see those have been brought in their layers with their names. So that's all good stuff. And then I'm going to go get my one last file, which is my logo. And there it is, and it can just be brought in as footage. Don't create a composition. Click on Open. And it's going to say, merge layers. Yeah, okay, fine. Everything's fine. All right, so we got everything we need here now. I'm going to come over here again. I'm going to create a new composition. I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to have this be HDTV 1080 29.97. Change this to 30. And this is going to work out to being 20 seconds. That is long, and I think it's long enough. Let's make it 20. Let's make it 30, all right? And background color, let's go and make that black. So there's black, okay, and everything else here is fine. Click on OK. The very first thing we're going to do is we're going to work on our logo. So I'm just going to go grab my logo and drop it inside of here. And if you want to make something 3D, all you need to do is come right here where they have that cube, check inside of there. Guess what? Now it is a 3D object. And we can go and have multiple views, which is useful sometimes. Let's say that we want 2 views horizontal. And there you go. There's our views. And you're going to be able to zoom in and zoom out. Let's go and make this smaller so that I can see more of the most important stuff. All right, you can see this is the active camera. This is what we are going to see, and this is the top. I don't really care about the top here, so I am going to say custom view 1. There's my custom view 1. And I selected this area. If you want to decide what shows up in which one of these different things, well, I'm going to say, you know what? I want this to be custom view 1. So let's have that be custom view 1. And then let's select this one. And let's go and change that to active camera. So this is what's going to be shown in the video. And this is not. All right. This is what we're going to basically be playing with. And you can see now this is 3D, and we're going to be able to do all sorts of things. We're going to be able to rotate it in 3D. Let me zoom in here so you can really see what I'm doing. See, I can rotate it, and I'm just undoing this. And you can pull it on the Z-axis. You can pull it on the X-axis. You can pull it on the Y-axis. And you could also rotate it this way. All right? And you can also rotate it this other way if you can get your mouse in there. Okay. So the way that After Effects used to work is you used to use all sorts of custom tools, but those tools still exist. They are up here. They are actually very dramatically different than the 2020 version of After Effects. All these changed. And I'm going to show you how all of them work here in a second. One thing you want to make sure that you do is renderer. Make sure this is set for classic 3D. And you can see here with our logo, if you come down here, under transform, you can see that there are 3 numbers now for position, showing you that these are indeed 3D objects we're working with. All right, so now what I want to do is I'm actually going to turn 3D off. Sometimes I feel that it's actually a little bit easier to do things when you're not in 3D mode. Use my selection tool, and I'm going to shrink this down. And how I'm going to do it is I'm going to hold down my shift and either command or control. And let's shrink this down so that it's a little bit easier to work with in our final project. And I can zoom in here. Use my little hand tool to move the composition around inside of there as well. And then I'm going to get to the text tool. And I'm going to deselect everything. I'm just going to come down here, click. And then I'm going to come in here. I have Ubuntu selected. You can do whatever you'd like. I don't really care. And I'm just going to type in after as one word. I'm going to highlight this though and change my color, get my eyedropper, whoops, and just say deny on that. You're not going to get that problem. Okay, and there you go. So I have after, and then I'm going to come down here and then I'm going to do effects underneath of it. So After Effects, and then I'm going to animate these guys. Let's just go get this, and I'm also going to shrink them down in size. So let's shrink them down, and I can select both of them, and where's a line? There's a line, and left. Now they're aligned properly. And actually, you know what? I'm also going to go into character. I'm just going to change this to white. All right, so just make that white to keep it nice and simple. All right, so I'm going to start off with a simple 3D animation with our 3 different objects we have here. What I want the AE logo part to do is I want it to sort of flip in from the left, and then the After Effects are going to flip downwards. So how do you do that? So I'm going to select these, and I'm going to get my hand tool again, put them on the screen. And to do that, you're going to have to come up here to this pan behind tool. Click on that, and you're going to want to have your pivot point be on the left. So I drug it over there, and then I'm going to get the after part. I'm going to drag it up so that the pivot point is above it, but in the middle. Going to do the same thing for the effects part. Drag it up here so that the pivot point is in the middle, but it is above the word. Now what I can do is let's come down here and let's select our logo. I'm going to come in here to roughly 15 frames area. I can't shrink that down anymore. All right, let's not mess that up. Actually, let's just do an undo on that. So let's go to, say, 5 seconds. And you can see over here is the 5 seconds. And I am going to select just the logo part. And I want to mess around with rotation. So I'm going to hit R. Whoops. Going to also make all of these 3D. Now you're going to see that there is an orientation, which is going to represent X, Y, and Z. And then you're going to have just X. This is the number of times it would rotate. the 0x. So if you want to have it rotate 2 times over the period of our sequences or our timeline or the length of our video, you would just turn that from a 0 into a 2. And this was just going to allow you to work with all 3 of them, but you can't do can't define the number of rotations with that. All right, so we got this all set up. I'm going to set a keyframe on the Y rotation right there. And then I am going to, actually, you know what? I'm going to move this to 3 seconds. Over here, change that to 3. There we are. Now I'm going to go to the Y rotation, set a keyframe, and then I'm going to come back to the 0 area. And for the Y rotation, I'm going to change this to 90 and look in the upper right-hand corner, and you can see how that is changing. Then I'm going to come to the Y rotation for this, and I'm going to change it until it does not show on the screen. All right, so I got that all set up. Now I'm going to go to the after part, and I'm going to set the rotation on that differently. So R again, and this time I'm going to manipulate it on the X rotation area. So I'm going to have the AE logo come in here, and I'm going to set a keyframe for the after part on the X rotation. And then I'm just going to jump ahead to say 5 and set another keyframe here. Jump back over to this keyframe. And then for X, I'm going to raise this up until the after part disappears. And then I'm going to do exactly the same thing for effects. R for rotation. Again, come in and set this at 5 seconds. X rotation. Come back over to 3 seconds. Let's just go in here and get this. There we are. And then go and rotate that until it doesn't show either. All right. And then if we want to look at our animation here, we can zoom in and we can swipe through. And you can see the logo comes in and then the text comes in right afterwards. All right, so there is a basic 3D animation using text. Now let's take it up a notch by learning about how to animate cameras. Let's go and create a new composition. Comp 2 is perfectly fine. Everything else here is perfectly fine. And click on OK. This time I'm going to be messing around with that city image. So I'm just going to grab it and throw it down here. And you're going to see this thing is huge. As you can see, as I zoom out, see, that's how big it is. So again, we're going to step it up a little bit. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to sort of simulate a drone flying around inside of this area. But to do so, well, first off, this has to be 3D. So click on 3D. We can zoom in and out on this guy. And then we're going to have to create a camera. To do so, go New and Camera. And you're going to see all kinds of things here that I'll explain to you. First off, you have 1-node cameras and 2-node cameras. A 2-node camera has a point of interest. You're going to see what point of interest is. It's a way of locking your camera in and changing angles on it. Whenever I show it to you, it'll totally make sense. So 2-node camera it is. Now you're going to be able to change the focal length for your camera here under preset. And what focal length measures is the distance at which you'll have a sharp image in relation to your digital sensor in your camera. And the larger the focal length, like 200, the higher the magnification, and the shorter, the wider your angle of view. And I'm going to set mine for 35. I'm going to uncheck lock to zoom. And this is just kind of giving you specific numbers for what happens whenever you use a 35mm lens or focal length, however you want to refer to it. And of course, the zoom represents the distance between your camera and the composition. The angle of view represents how wide your field of view is. And you can play around with these different presets, see what those change. If you have depth of field selected, that is going to cause blurring. So we're not going to do that. You can also define how you want these to be set for pixels or millimeters. So we can just leave them as millimeters because it doesn't matter. And here is our film size. Horizontal is how we're going to be working with everything. So everything here looks pretty good. So I'm going to click on OK. Now we have a camera. Now, if you ever want to change the settings for your camera, just double click on your camera down here in the timeline and that opens up. Okay. Now the image over here in your active camera or this box that's here. See the box? This is showing you what your camera is seeing on, or actually I don't know if you can see it here, but there's a box that goes from this to this to this. All right, so that's what it's sort of aiming at. And mainly whenever you're working with your camera, I'm going to get into these tools here in a minute, you're just going to be dragging your camera around and using that for animations and so forth and so on. And like I showed you previously, you can rotate it and all this stuff. Oh, and this is the point of interest. And how that is going to work for you is, let's say that we want to go and move this, but you want to keep your point of interest from moving. See, point of interest is moving. That pivot point you see right there. Well, let's say we don't want the point of interest to move. Just hold down Command, and look at that. You're moving your camera, and you're looking at it from a completely different angle, and the point of interest is not moving at all. All right? So that's what we refer to as the point of interest, and that is a very interesting way to animate in an image like this. All right, so I told you I was going to show you these special tools and what they do. All right, first off, you have Orbit Around Cursor tool. So we're going to select that. And I mainly work over in the active camera area whenever I'm using these different tools. And you can see that if I use my middle scroll bar, it's going to zoom in and out. You can also see the cameras moving over there. Very useful tool. And you're also going to be able to drag with it, which provides all sorts of other interesting objects. Basically, we're just looking at our image from different angles, all right? And its main use is to rotate to show layers at different angles, just like you saw. And if you go and do this stuff over here, you can see that it is affecting what you're seeing. So it's sort of like a way of changing the position of the camera and so forth without affecting what is going on in the active camera area. There's another tool, and it is called the Pan Under Cursor tool. And what it's going to do is it's going to move your view up, down, left, and right. And we're going to be able to animate all these things. Then you're finally going to have this guy right here. This is the Dolly Towards Cursor tool, and it's going to be used to zoom in and out. But for the most part, I just use this guy whenever I want to move stuff around, the Orbit Around Cursor tool. You can use whatever you'd like to use, of course. All right, so what we're going to do here is I am using my middle scroll bar, and I'm just zooming in and out. If you don't have that, you can use your Dolly Towards Cursor tool, this guy right here. All right, I'm just going to zoom way out on this city scene, and I'm like trying to simulate what it would look like if a drone came into this area, all right? It's not going to be perfect, but I want to really show you what all the tools do quickly, and then you can go in and play with things on your own. All right, so I zoomed way out. Now what I want to do is I have everything set for 3D, or this image anyway. Drop this down here, drop down transform, and you can see all of these different options that are available to you. And what I want to do is I'm just going to start setting keyframes. Oh, and another thing is as we are moving around here, you're going to be changing both your position as well as the orientation as you make changes. So let's just go and select both. So I got my position and I have my orientation. And let's go to the 3-second area, roughly. And then what we can do is we can come in here and zoom in. So I'm going to zoom in, and I'm actually just going to grab this camera tool that we have here. And you can see as I'm moving around on here that the position as well as the orientation is going to be changing. I'm going to grab the X arrow that's coming out of there, and I'm sort of turning that as I move it around. And then I'm going to grab this Z axis right here, and I'm going to drag and move it in, or pull it out actually, so that I'm zooming in here. And we can come in and look at that. And you can see it's sort of like zooming into the camera area. This is sort of hard to see here, so I'm going to sort of move this around a little bit so that I can see it a little bit better on the points of interest. And this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down my control key while I drag around. So I'm going to go to right around 6 seconds into the video. And then I'm going to hold down my command key while I drag on this to keep my point of interest in place. Control on Windows, of course. Then let's find our Z axes again. We can sort of zoom in here like this. And let's go and look at what that animation looks like. So it's sort of zooming in here and zooming down in. So it's sort of simulating what it would look like if a drone was coming into this area. And what you should do is continue to add additional keyframes and move around using these different tools to make things look really cool. And of course, another thing we can do is we can come in here and select all of these different keyframes, hit F9, and now they are available for easing. As you can see, the hourglass. Come over here to the graph editor, and then you can go and play around with the changing of the easing on this and just see how these different changes will affect everything. All right, and we can come in and zoom in and look at how our movie is changing. All right, woo! So it's sort of zoomed in really fast, like they're looking for this guy or something like that, eating that hot dog. All right, so cool stuff. And another thing that's really cool is I just went and got the AI file that has this snow scene inside of it. And I went and got all of the individual parts. I added a camera, just like I did before. And then I transformed these. And for the position, I set the first one for 100. And for the second one, transform, you can see the position is 200. And I just increased the position for all of these different individual objects on different layers. And what this is going to allow you to do is come in here and grab your camera. And you're going to, of course, be able to zoom in to a AI file, a vector art file. And let's say we put this like this and hold down the Command or Control. And you're going to be able to lock into position on that and look at it from so many different really cool angles. All right, so just something else neat you can do with actual vector art. And now I'm going to show you how to come in and rotate planets around the sun. All right, so I just went and created another 1080p composition, 30 frames per second. And you can come in here to the planets layers. And the very first thing I'm going to do is get the sun. Just drag it, drop it in there. There is the sun. And I am going to increase its scale. So let's come in. I just went and clicked on S for scale. And let's increase its size to say like 300. And I'm not keyframing this. This is what I want to start off with. And there is the whole entire area you can see right there. Actually, I'm just going to do one view for this. So let's just do one view. Then going to go and get Mercury. Drop it down inside of there. You can't see it. I'm going to grab Mercury, drop it above so you can sort of see it right there. And I'm going to increase the scale of Mercury as well. Let's take it up to say 150. Now you're going to want to rotate these guys around on the screen. And to do that, you're going to need a camera. So we're going to go right, click, and new, and camera. There's your camera object. I'm going to use a 35mm camera. Everything else here looks perfectly fine. Again, want it to be 2-node camera. Click on OK. It's at the top. And now what you're going to do is you're going to be working with a null object. So we're going to come in. You're going to right click on your camera you just created here. Go to camera and then create orbit null. And this is going to make doing orbiting extremely easy. First, I want to grab Mercury here. And let's just go and move Mercury over here to the right or whatever. You want to make sure that Mercury and the sun are in 3D. So let's go and do that just by clicking on this little cube right here. We're going to set a keyframe at 0F for our null that we have here. And specifically the Y rotation. So I'm going to go create a keyframe here. And then I'm going to go to like 12 seconds. That's pretty good. And create another keyframe. Again, we're working with our null object we have here. And then we want to rotate this 6 times. So I'm just going to come here and go to 6. And if we come in and drag it, you can see that it's rotating, but that's not the type of rotation we want. We do not want the planets to be flipping like that. And to keep the planets from flipping, we're going to put our sun right here before any of the other additional planets that we have. And then we want to parent the sun to null. So parent is going to be changed to null. And now you can see the sun is not flipping, but you can see that Mercury is. So we're going to right click on Mercury in our timeline and then go to Transform and Auto Orient. You're going to orient towards the camera. Click on OK. And now if we rotate it, you can see Mercury goes behind the sun and then goes in front of the sun and orbits exactly the way we want it to. You can also go and drag Venus onto the screen. So let's get Venus, drag it down here. Again, we're going to position Venus. So let's just go Transform and Position. And let's drag Venus over here to the left. And let's scale Venus up so that Venus is bigger than Mercury. And I just have it at 275. It doesn't matter. Whatever you'd like, whatever looks good for you. And again, right click on it and Transform and Auto Orient. And whoops, didn't show my option, so cancel that. Forgot to make this 3D. Now right click it again. Transform, Auto Orient, Orient towards camera. Click on OK. And now both of them are going to work and rotate. So pretty cool stuff. You're also going to be able to add additional planets, of course. We can also come in here to our sun. Let's say we want the sun to rotate around. Let's go to our sun and it's Z rotation. So put this down here and Z rotation, add a keyframe, and then let's go to 12 seconds, wherever that is. There it is, 12 seconds. And let's say we want it to rotate twice. So just change that into a 2 or 3, whatever, same difference. And now not only is our sun rotating, but our planets are rotating and it's looking really cool. And I leave it to you to go and add in additional planets. I'm sure you can do it. And like always, please leave your questions and comments down below. Otherwise, till next time.